On your table, I have made a copy of a card, of a greeting card. Is that okay? Is that good? Good, good. And it's a story of a cat's day. Took a nap. Tuesday, took a nap. Wednesday, took a nap. Thursday, wrote 24 pages of my novel. Friday, took a nap. The wonderful thing, one of the many wonderful things about Martyrs is that when you're given a theme, something like, if it rains, it pours, you can feel perfectly free to ignore that theme. And we have done so. I say, June, what are you going to do? She says, I'm writing a letter from my cats to my nieces and nephew. Okay, I say I'm doing that too. But that's not enough, so the next thing I'm doing is I'm telling about a love affair I had that was never consummated because I was too chicken. So here we go, friends. The first one is your cats.
Yes. And I'm not telling you about my cat's letter to my niece and nephew.
Oh yes, I made that up.
Actually, though, I have been thinking a lot lately about the inner lives of cats. Years ago, I had a cat named Charlie. He was a half Siamese cat with a lovely auburn coat. I often thought what a nice muff he would make. I took in, while I had him, I took in a pregnant cat, as one does. And when the kittens were born, one little orange male developed a great fondness for Charlie. He followed Charlie around and tried to go everywhere Charlie went. Charlie was having none of it. My ex-husband had made shelves going up to the transom over the kitchen door, so Charlie could go in and out whenever he wanted to. Charlie would sit on the highest shelf while the orange kitten would sit down on the floor, meowing bitterly because he couldn't follow Charlie. Charlie was unmoved. He had no time for kittens. Many years later, when Charlie was a very old cat, I took in another pregnant cat, as one does. When her kittens were old enough to leave the box they were born in, they started curling up around Charlie, as close as they could get, and Charlie let them. He would sit surrounded by little puffballs of kitten, like one of those ceramic chickens on a nest surrounded by their eggs. When their mother weaned them, Charlie would let them nurse on his bony chest. He was the model of a grandfatherly kitten sitter. There was a time when researchers didn't think animals had feelings as we understand them. But I couldn't help wondering, what were the kittens thinking when they were drawn to Charlie? What was Charlie thinking when he perfectly modeled human infant care? I can't know. But I'm giving Charlie's emotional life the benefit of the doubt.
This is from the diary of a disappointed cat. This is Toots thinking. Nicole has one remaining zebra finch. I have been patient. I'm not getting any younger. The zebra finch is not getting any younger. Nicole is in the bathroom filling the feeder in the finch's cage. She absent-mindedly leaves the cage door open. Then she forgets to close the bathroom door. The finch flies directly into my mouth. This is a totally unexpected piece of good luck. My mouth is still open as I consider what to do next. The finch is in my mouth, quivering with fear. Suddenly, Nicole appears in front of me with one swift movement, surprising in an elderly woman. She removes the finch from my open mouth and rushes it to its cage and wraps it in a very tiny blanket. Why? Why didn't I chomp down on the finch when it was lying helpless between my jaws? Why? Because I didn't believe my good luck. I savored the moment. I savored it too long. And she took the prize from my jaws of death. He lived through the night. He recovered. She gave him away, perhaps because she felt too old to live through a second time. He was in my mouth. He was mine. I've had disappointments in my life, none so bad as this one. I revisit that defeat daily. Now we live in a corner apartment on the 7th floor. I see birds. I see pigeons. I move from window to window, hoping to see that finch, but I don't.
Nicole and I were talking about old love letters. We both keep letters. And I told Nicole, I told you, about one that I thought from the day I got it, I shouldn't keep it because if I get hit by a bus, somebody's going to be clearing out my stuff. And somebody, my nieces, or God forbid, their children, are going to read my letters, including that letter. Over the years, every once in a while, I would think, I've got to get in there and take out that letter. Well, let's come back to reality. Someday, somebody's going to be clearing out my stuff and say, look, here are 3 boxes of letters. And somebody else is going to say, oh, look at that, here's a trash bag. Anyway, that conversation with Nicole made me pull out the boxes and hunt for that letter. It turned up in the 1975 binder. It's from a guy who introduced me to some mildly kinky sex involving a very symbolic form of S&M, by which I mean it didn't hurt. He eventually decided to go to San Francisco, and he wrote me this letter from there. He was open to all experience in a 1970s kind of way, and I was a little nervous about where it might lead him, so I cut off contact with him. So now, I pull out this letter, and I read it, and I reread it, and I think, this would not bring a blush to the cheeks of today's 12-year-olds. Aside from a mention of how turned on he was when we acted out that fantasy, and the time I was submissive to you, this was a sweet 70s letter from a guy in his 20s about going to San Francisco, taking guitar lessons, getting into meditation, seeing puppet shows, and watching the sailboats go under the Golden Gate Bridge. And now, I feel pretty bad about not writing back.
It's not too late. Here's another piece having nothing to do with this month's theme. I've decided to write about my love affair with a married man in France. He plans to visit me to consummate our love, which so far consists of witty letters. I have his letters, he has mine. One day he decides to look at all my letters because I am a brilliant letter writer. And he spreads them out on the desk in his apartment. It's April 25th. It's my birthday. It's his wife's birthday. She walks into the room and sees my letters and is outraged. We were friends. I have betrayed her. He asks why I am the villain and he is not. This is so simple. Why do you have to ask? He is extraordinarily selfish. No one expects anything but that from him. He's a spoiled baby man who never learned to drive. Because why should he? Brigitte drove him everywhere. When Brigitte had to go out of town with the children, perhaps to visit her family, he moves a woman into their house. This is acceptable. What is not acceptable, that I have had a year-long secret correspondence with him and that he planned to visit me in Chicago. I could have reassured her on that score. That trip, if I had breath in my body, was never going to take place. I was never physically attracted to him, only to his amazing letters. All right, let me be totally honest. I was afraid to have sex with him because of his total self-centeredness and the fact that I was not French. How could I compete with French women, schooled in the tricks and delights of sexually pleasing men, when I was just a Chicago girl with practically no savoir-faire and no idea of how to please a cosmopolitan man with years of being pleased by experts? Yes, I bailed, wouldn't you?